What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back picking teams yet again. I'm joined by Tyler Harden of TTJH Sports. This is week 3, and last week, some magical way, I have no idea, but we actually ended up tying. I thought I had set it up to where that would be completely impossible, and I thought it was foolproof. Well, I'm the fool, and we ended up tying, but anyways, we were picking a quarterback, running back, tight end, 2 wide receivers, edge rusher or defensive lineman, corner, safety, and linebacker. 9 total players. I would say that means we couldn't tie, but that would be a lie. So, Tyler, let's just dive on in and pick your quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, first off, what a week 2 we've had in college football. I mean, I don't have to tell you that, you touching your Texas hat there, all that good stuff. I mean, man, you've had a hell of a weekend, you could say.
It was
Hell of a weekend.
glad.
Are you still up there on cloud nine, or have you come down?
Come down a little bit just because I know there's 10 more games to be played. And, I've seen so many times where we get high and then just it comes crashing down. But I think Sark's got them focused this year.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's just exciting now that Texas could very well be back. And now they're in the whole conversation and all that stuff. It's definitely going to be a sight to see when it comes to how far is Texas really going to go now that they kind of turned a lot of heads with that win over Alabama. It's definitely going to be exciting. But speaking of teams players that are turning heads, with my first overall pick at the quarterback position, I'm bought in. I've seen everything I need to see from this player, this team, this head coach, everything. I'm going with Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. They got a big in-state matchup in Colorado State. College game day is going there, right?
Yes, and I believe big noon kickoff. I think 60 Minutes is gonna be there for something. There, the media that is in Boulder this weekend is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm
Mhm.
bought in with the Buffaloes. Shedeur Sanders looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the country these past 2 games. And it's not like they're playing light teams. They played TCU. Of course, we're kind of wondering if TCU is going to be legit or not. And, Nebraska sometimes surprises people. So I'm going with Shedeur Sanders. I think he's going to put on another clinic. He loves throwing the ball around. And I want him on my team for this week.
I love that pick, and I love how you said you're bought into Shador because I think the whole nation at this point pretty much is. And I think a lot of people are bought into my pick as well. I'm going to have to roll with Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. They're going to East Lansing to play Michigan State. There's a lot of drama going on up in East Lansing right now at the moment, and I think Penix could really go on and put on a show up there.
Yeah, I really like that pick. And I feel like Penix is, one of those players that kind of gets, that Pac-12 effect where it's like, oh, they're playing, later in the night. So everybody's, gone to bed, stopping watching football, and he's just putting on a show. I mean, what, he had 400 plus yards this past week against Tulsa. Like, he's got great receivers around him as well. And so I really like that pick, man, for sure.
All right, now to kind of speed stuff up, let's talk about some speedsters at the running back position. Who's your running back? I gotta know.
Yeah, so my running back, I'm going over to South Bend. I'm picking Audric Estime out of Notre Dame. He's playing Central Michigan. He should, have an easy time running the ball in that offense. I mean, they're an offense that kind of likes to do a little bit of everything. They're not really a run heavy team. They're not really a pass pro team. They're, really split right down the middle. So I like how he's been really consistent back there with his, carry amounts. He's getting a good production level every game. So I'm going with him, and hopefully that continues.
And he's a really good pick too. And I think playing against a team like Central Michigan, not taking a jab at Central Michigan, but I think Audric Estime has really shown out the past few weeks. He was the guy who had the first touchdown of the college football season over in Ireland, and then last week I think he had 2 touchdowns in that monsoon hurricane game against North Carolina State. So that's a great pick. I like Audric Estime a lot. Now, for my guy, I'm gonna have to definitely go with Florida State running back Trey Benson. He had 3 touchdowns last week against Southern Miss, and they're traveling on the road to Boston College, and I think he could really show out there. and I really like that as my pick.
Yeah, I mean that's an in-conference game too. I mean Boston College has struggled their past two games, but that's no reason why he's going to come out early. Those in-conference games are super important, and I feel like his production level, despite how much they're up by or whatnot, I think that's going to keep him in the game. So no, I like that pick too, man, for sure.
Now, let's go on to wide receivers. Let's talk wide receivers. Who's your wide receiver one for the week?
My wide receiver one. So you picked Michael Penix as your quarterback, and I'm going to try and offset that a little bit. I'm going to go with Rome Odunze out of Washington. Of course, they're at Michigan State. Like you said, a lot of drama going on up there. So I think Washington's kind of going to be in their own element, just throwing the ball around while, Michigan State is kind of just off balance for both, on and off the field reasons. And, at the end of the day, man, Odunze, correct me if I'm butchering that pronunciation, but I mean, he's coming into the season as one of the best receivers in the country. And, with that kind of praise, you can't really ignore that. So the upside is there no matter where he's playing. He always has the potential to go off. And, he did this past week, 100 plus receiving yards. So no, I'm going with Odunze, and hopefully he has another week like he did last week.
And like you said, he is coming into the week one of the top receivers in the country, and the more he helps you, well, that's gonna help me, I guess, in a way. So hopefully, or maybe that'll offset for the two of us right there. I'm gonna have to redeem my freshman token for the week, and I'm gonna have to choose Notre Dame wide receiver Jaden Greathouse. Had a touchdown last week, not a lot of yardage. I think maybe 15 yards against North Carolina State, but they're playing Central Michigan, and I think he could get his numbers this week.
Yeah, no, I like that pick, and you got your freshman out of the way, out of guys that you know, not a lot of true freshmen are playing right now. That's just not really, where we're at with everything. So no, I like that pick, and you got your freshman out of the way. So kind of killing two birds with one stone there. So with my wide receiver two, I'm going to Ole Miss. I'm picking Trey Harris. He's got 8 receptions on the year with 5 receiving touchdowns. So really you can't ask for any more. I mean, when he's catching the ball in a big way. And so I'm going with him, and hopefully they've got Georgia Tech this week, who is 1-1 on the season. So I'm going with Trey Harris, and hopefully he finds the end zone again.
Is that game on the road for Ole Miss, or is it at home?
Pretty sure it's at home.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now. I think it's at home. So
okay, yeah, you're right. It is Georgia Tech at Ole Miss. Yeah, he's gonna come through. And Jackson Dart, he's playing good, I think, and he had a good little showing against Tulane. That was kind of a challenge for the Rebels last week for sure. That was the game Michael Pratt set out for me, so I definitely lost the quarterback position last week. But yeah, he should show out this week with Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and when you texted me and said, "Hey, Michael Pratt's out," I was like, "Oh, I got this week in the bag. No quarterback." I'm like, "I got it," and somehow we tied, but hey man, I can't really say that might not be the last time. Might will be the last time. I don't know. College football is interesting. It throws a wrench whenever it seems to, want to and all that. So no, it's definitely funny.
You definitely think you got it in the bag, and then you just get laughed at half the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So for my wide receiver 2, I'm going to have to go with a guy who had a good showing last week against Alabama. Of course, I'm going to have to pick Texas receiver Adonai Mitchell, 78 yards and 2 touchdowns against Alabama. One was a slant route, and then one was a deep ball. I just think Quinn's putting it on the money for them, and I think Quinn's found a new favorite wide receiver. I mean, I know Worthy's been one of his favorite wide receivers, but it's kind of hard between the two right now. But I think Adonai Mitchell can show out this week against Wyoming, and we'll have to see.
Yeah, no, I like that pick, man. I was wondering how long it would take you to pick a Longhorn off the board, especially after a big week. But hey, man, it's definitely right on the money right there with him. I mean, he's beaten Alabama twice now at 2 different schools, and I don't know if really anybody in college football could say that right now. So, I mean, you're certainly getting a winner on your team there, and No, I definitely like that pick.
I was definitely trying my best to like not just pick an entire squad of Longhorns.
I mean, it's valid, man. They're playing some good football, so it's not like you're picking somebody who's 0 and 2 on the season. They're very much 2 and 0, and they're
Mm.
playing some good football.
Oh yeah, that is definitely a true statement. Now, let's talk some tight ends. Who are you picking for tight end?
Yeah, so tight end, I'm going with a team that, kind of got, you know, I don't really know how to say it. They just kind of got pummeled this past weekend. I'm going with Benjamin Urosek out of Stanford. I mean, he's gotten 13 receptions on the year. He's only found the end zone one time, but the production level is there. He's season opener against Hawaii, he caught the ball 9 times. So they're throwing him the ball. They're not afraid to throw him the ball. And against a team like USC, you can't really expect anybody to get the ball a lot when you have a defense kind of ball hawking you down all the time. So I'm going with Benjamin Urasek. They got Sacramento State a good week to kind of, redeem themselves after last week. So I think he's going to get the ball a lot.
That's a good pick because I definitely think it's a bounce back week for the Cardinal for sure. For my pick, I definitely want to go with Notre Dame tight end. I'm gonna take another Fighting Irishman, but I will take Holden Stays, Notre Dame, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns versus North Carolina State. And like I said, they're playing Central Michigan. I think this could very well be a stat game for the Irish. Hartman's playing so great lately. I feel like he's really shown out the last 3 weeks, and it's hard not to pick a team full of Irish as well. You already took Audric Estime, so and that was my running back too. So, yeah, Holden Stays.
An interesting fact here, you've now picked two players that have been on the TTJH Sports Show. So I love to see that. I love to see my guys win. So shout out to Jaden Greathouse and Holden Stays. Two Notre Dame guys right there doing it well, and shout out to those guys
Oh yeah, we'll have to tag him. We'll tag him.
for sure, for sure.
All right, now moving to the defensive side of the ball, we said we're taking a edge rusher, defensive lineman, linebacker, corner, and a safety. Let's start off with edge rusher slash defensive lineman. Who you taking?
Yeah, so I'm going with Justin Maskell out of Clemson, and people kind of wrote off Clemson, from their opening loss against Duke. That was kind of just very very off balance, very unfamiliar from Clemson. But they got Florida Atlantic this week, and defensive linemen out of Clemson just as a whole, are known for producing, known for kind of just being down there in the trenches at its finest. So I'm going with Justin Maskell against a team that they should do well against, and should work their way maybe back into the top 25. Who knows? But I'm going with Justin Maskell, and hopefully they continue to bounce back too.
I definitely think they will because they got voted out of the AP Top 25 this week, and then that's really got a lot of fire under them, and I think Dabo's going to be able to motivate that team to definitely come back and get a win. For my edge rusher, defensive lineman, I'm going to take Tyler Barron out of Tennessee. He's got a big game on the road in the swamp against Florida. 3 total tackles, 1 sack against Austin Peay last week. I feel like it was a early struggle. They eventually put Austin Peay away. But this is going to be a game where I think all the Tennessee starters are going to play most of the game. And this is a game where he's going to have to show out, especially for his team, to see if the Vols are real or not this year.
That's my most like slept on matchup of the week, even though it's not really like slept on. But hey, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, seeing how Florida kind of played against Utah in their season opener, I'd put Tennessee on upset watch.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the swamp, very hard place to play. Florida's going to bring all their fans out. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see if Florida can really do it and pull off a great upset to kind of, cancel out that opening loss to Utah.
And that's what I'm saying too. If Florida gets this win over Tennessee, are they back in the conversation for potentially like finishing second or third in the SEC West? I wouldn't go as far about playoff yet because you still have Georgia sitting there floating around, but I mean they could still finish with a good bowl game at the end of the year with a win over Tennessee, in my opinion.
It definitely kind of makes the loss to Utah not seem as bad, even though it wasn't great. I mean, it definitely kind of gives them a little break there. and says, hey, how legit was this Florida team at the time? So you never really know,
And it kind
and
of
that's
puts
the
Utah in question a little bit too.
exactly, exactly. So speaking of the Florida Gators, moving on to linebacker now, I'm gonna stick with the Florida Gator. I'm gonna go Shamar James, another player that has been on the TJH Sports Show. So shout out to him. Shamar's
Mhm.
doing it well over there in Gainesville, but he's leading the team in tackles right now with I think he's got what 19 on the year for the Gators. He's leading that defense right now, and he's in a Utah loss that Florida didn't really look great. He came away with 13 tackles, 13 total tackles. So the production was there, and times where it wasn't as great, and they're going to of course have another challenge against Tennessee. So it's good that when the defense is struggling, he's still able to put up numbers. So I'm going with Shamar James, and regardless of if the Gators pull it off or not, I think he's going to have himself quite a day.
Yeah, and like you said, against Utah, the team didn't have a great showing, but he kind of did. So I guess when you're just doing numbers against numbers, that's kind of all that matters in this one. I'm glad we got two more guys that are gonna kind of offset each other a little bit, hopefully, this Saturday. Now, if you've watched the last two episodes, you know I have a tendency to pick linebackers out of North Carolina. I guess I'm a not double down, but triple down on this one. Obviously, we're going Power Eccles this week. He's playing Minnesota. Minnesota's 2-0. North Carolina's 2-0. He had 9 total tackles, 6 solo against App State. I picked Amari Gainer and Cedric Gray in the past 2 weeks. I think Power Eccles, it's time for him to show out this week.
Yeah, and I think I remember bringing up Power Eccles last week. I was like, man, we haven't even brought up Power Eccles yet, and here he is, getting brought up. I mean, he showed out last year from what I remember. So no, man, the linebackers from North Carolina are doing great right now. They're looking like quite a squad.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a fun draft class whenever all three of those guys get to go. I know it's gonna kind of put a dent in North Carolina a little bit, but I mean, wow, what a good three right there for you.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So let's move on over to the defensive back position, cornerback. I'm going over to Iowa now. I'm going with Cooper DeJean. Uh, Correct me if I'm butchering that pronunciation, but I mean he's kind of gone 2 for 2 when it comes to showing out. Seven total tackles against Utah State. He put up a 10 total tackles against in-state rival Iowa State. So they got Western Michigan this coming week. It shouldn't be a challenge for the Hawkeyes to pull off the win, and it's at home. So I like my odds there with him, and I think he's going to put up another solid week to kind of continue his role he's got going on.
Speaking of the state of Michigan, I'm gonna have to go with a guy from Central Michigan named Dante Kent. 10 total tackles versus New Hampshire and Michigan State in each one of those games. He's actually going up against some of the Irishmen that I picked in Notre Dame this coming week. But he had 10 tackles against Michigan State, and I know Michigan State might not be as good as Notre Dame this year, but that's still a D1 Power 5 team, and I think he could put up some numbers again. He's one of those guys that I think's kind of flying under the radar just a little bit in this year's draft, this year's highlights in a way, but yeah, I think Dante Kent can definitely get the job done this weekend.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong here. Is that our first group of five player? Well, not group of five per se, like MAC, Conference USA, Mountain West, like those caliber of schools. Is that our first player off the board from one of those schools
For this week,
for the whole series?
I think out of that area, because I did take Michael Pratt.
Michael Pratt. That's why I corrected myself when I said group of five because I remembered him and Tulane. I mean Tulane, they're technically group of five, but I wouldn't really put them under that same umbrella. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean Tulane's playing really good football.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's hard to say one thing or the other, but yeah, definitely out of the MAC and out of that area, and we haven't really dipped too much into the group of five, but definitely out of that area.
Hey, I mean, the school of Central Michigan, they got quite the history. So
Mhm.
that's definitely, maybe some foreshadowing there, maybe not, who knows, but hey, we'll see what happens. Now, going into our last pick, I kind of took a little bit of a gamble here and waited quite some time to pick my true freshman. I mean, like we've said, if you haven't watched past episodes, we have to pick at least one true freshman every week. And I I knew I was going to take mine at safety, so I didn't worry about it. And so I'm going back to Gainesville. I'm picking Jordan Castell at the safety position. Put up 7 total tackles against Utah. He had a quieter week against McNeese, but I mean they're putting him out on the field as a true freshman. That speaks a lot of volume. So I think they're gonna, kind of have some more faith in him as they take on Tennessee at home and really just put him to the true test and see how he does against a powerful SEC opponent.
He's definitely earned his spot on the field with the Gators, and they are showing him some love for sure, because they're kind of showing him that same kind of vibe, using him in the same way as Caleb Downs at Alabama, another true freshman, getting to play at the safety position in big time football games. And it's going to be great to see what your guy does this week. I'm going to have to take, well, actually, my safety's going up against your quarterback. I'm going to take a guy from Colorado State, Jack Howell. He had 16 total tackles in the opener of the season against Washington State, which is really nice numbers, to be honest. And he's going up against a super high powered offense, obviously, with Colorado. So it's going to be interesting to see his production and impact on that game.
Yeah. No, I just like your research you've done this week. You're really getting into those, because like we said, if you could pick, a group of 5 player if they're going up against a Power 5 school. So these are kind of the weeks to do it and get those guys that are kind of floating under the radar. So no, I really like those picks. I love that research. That's awesome.
Dude, our teams are so stacked this week.
Dude, I like my team this week. I'm really hopeful to pull off my first win of the season. I just hope, other than that we don't tie. So, because man, we would have done all this research just to tie. But hey, man, it happens. I'm sure it'll happen again. But I mean, regardless, it's going to be another exciting week of college football.
Oh, yeah. And I know a lot of people are saying the week 3 slate isn't as fun, but there's still a lot of good games and a lot of good players are hitting the field this week. So you guys definitely have to tune in.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
All right, Tyler, this has been a great episode. I look forward to watching your guys and watching my guys, and it's going to be fun to see who comes out of this one. Hopefully not a tie, like you said.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun week for sure. For sure.
Oh, yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and tune back in next week. Actually, tune back in maybe Sunday when we have the graphic of everyone's stats and you know who wins.
Yep.